What's the title of the show?
This is Our Time with Elizabeth Wong Ahlers.
Okay. Our time meaning to win races.
Mm-hmm. And this is our time to flip this district.
Yeah. Well, um, what do you mean flip the district? Is this a show that only goes to so many people, or does it go national?
This show has no limits. It's on YouTube and Instagram and whatever platforms they're on, and whatever platforms I can share it to. So that's what I find is hard.
Actually, that's whose stuff is that? Is that your stuff? You can stick your rim out over there. It's just on screen. There we go. How's this? Christian, better? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, because you're going to be speaking to an audience that maybe doesn't know anything about La Cañada.
We're recording now, so I'm just going to close the door, give it a beep. I'll count up, and then start the show.
Thank you, Emilio.
Does that make sense? So how do we transition that?
I don't know. we can. I think we should talk to an audience that really doesn't know anything about us.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to This Is Our Time with me, Elizabeth Wong Ahlers, candidate for Senate District 25, coming up this November election. And today our guest is retired Senator Mike Morell. Mike has been in the California legislature in both Assembly and State Senate here in California in the years between 2010 and 2020. So, Mike, welcome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me here. Grateful.
So, Mike, can you tell us how does the California state legislature work? How is it structured? And some of your experience there.
Well, that's a loaded question. It's not structured very well. That's why California is experiencing the largest deficit we have ever had, the largest amount of people we've had moving out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even reading the Wall Street Journal last night, we're officially over the drought from all the rain we've had, but they're limiting our farmers to only 40% of the water that they need to, and so farmers are going broke. California is the breadbasket of America, produces most agriculture, so there's so many problems. They're hitting up that. Housing's really high. The average young person in 1981, a young married couple, could buy a home in California at the age of 31. Now it's 47 years old. And so because of government interference with permits and the entitling process before a builder can grade land, it can take 2 to 3 years, $400,000 of government fees, which they add that to the price. And then, so what happened is when I first got married, supply was here and demand was here, right? And so prices stayed down on homes. And but because the baby boomers is a large population, the demand soared. But as government regulation got worse and worse in the 80s, then the 90s, and then went on steroids in the 2000s, supply's been like this. So that's why it's lopsided in price. So government, whether it's whether it's our education systems, whenever there's too much government and they interfere, it's not a good thing.
Our family's really been feeling that housing. Because my children, we have 6 children from ages 30 to 17. So they're right in that range where they're getting married and having children, and they find that they can't purchase, and even paying rent is painful.
And see, that was part of the thing you asked me about Sacramento, what I learned up there. The founding of the Constitution was be living in government. where government's power is to be limited. The politician is supposed to be our servant, not our master. And so the thing is what happens? They've gone crazy up there, the other side of the aisle, because they become big government people, and because there's a lot of money in that, right? And so on education, when it used to be control at the local level, we were number one in the world. Today, it's all centered in Washington, D.C., and they dictate to the local school boards what to teach, and I think we're like 34th or 38th in math. So our education is sliding towards a third world government. And so again, getting back to your first question, I didn't mean to go off the track there, but I'm giving you examples on how government makes life painful for Americans, whether it's education, whether it's housing, or we see the cost of groceries going up. It can all be linked back to abandoning the political principles of limited constitutional government. And that's the problem with Sacramento.
It's really seems like it's gone upside down. Where so I don't know, I'm seeing it kind of like a pyramid where there's top and there's bottom, and really we the people at the at the base, the strength and the weight of it are not having the representation. Instead, it's like it's upside down, where those who are leaders are oppressing the general people with regulations that are becoming. So I was reading Exodus this morning in our Bible study, and reading about how the Hebrews in Egypt became oppressed, where they were a people of equal prosperity, and over the years they became oppressed. And so I was just thinking, wow, it sounds familiar.
Well, yeah, and a lot of times people, at least in a republic, they don't stand up for themselves. You know, prosperity sort of has a way. America's been very prosperous, where we start to lose our gratitude and our appreciation for the simple things. And hey, look, I think I work hard, I want to make money, but money is not the key to happiness. Freedom is, right? Faith in God and freedom. And so all of that's being taken away from our younger generation, from us. And so that's why California, a couple of things I want to say. There's a saying that you've heard it: as California goes, so goes America. So we've got to stop it here. That's why every district, your district you're running in, everything is at play. And I am seeing a lot of things which I think are good movements. This movement of parents returning back to school boards, I believe it happened here in California. So you've got parents of all shapes, sizes, and colors, and not necessarily Republicans. They're across the board. They're going back to these schools and saying, we do not want our kids indoctrinated. We want them to simply learn. This is a great movement. So I'm starting to think maybe there's hope for California again. I've had my doubts, but I think there's hope there. There's been, you talked about faith earlier. The largest baptism ever in the United States took place 2 weeks ago in Huntington Beach.
Yeah,
California. So in California again. And that's where everything started here. When you look at Focus on the Family, or the Azusa Street revivals, or even our cities like Sacramento means sacraments, right? Holy Communion, Holy Matrimony, just some wonderful things that took place here. And so my belief is that one time this was God's state, and I think He wants it back. But it's up to, as the Constitution requires, it's we the people. It's not they the government. So we have to take it back. And so that's part of the challenge. And so I am have my fears of a lot of bad things happening with the crime going on here, drugs, of course, and just big government, and how my friends across the aisle in the Democratic Party, they don't want law enforcement. It's crazy. They've gone insane with their thinking. But the people, they want their families to be protected. In the worst neighborhoods and the best neighborhoods, they want law enforcement in there. And so I think the thing is, the people are waking up, and hopefully it's not too little too late. But there are signs that give me hope that California is going to be restored.
Right. So that's why I named the show "This Is Our Time," because we are at a place that's kind of a crossroads. So if we start pushing back on this trajectory of destruction now, we still have a lot to preserve and a lot to restore and regain. If we wait, though, it's just going to go faster and worse, and the next generation's going to pay for it.
Well, let me say another thing, because something you just said kind of triggered something in my mind. How do we win? So the friends across the aisle, they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And the problem with many Republicans, many of them are people of faith. And so we're told to love people, peace, love, and tranquility. But there is a time to fight, right? There's a time to push back. There's a time. Scripture tells us that we're to refute bad ideologies, and we're to demolish arguments and tear down every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. So I think the thing is, we've got to speak out. Our words are important. I think it was Edmund Burke said, evil only triumphs when good men do nothing. And so as good men and good women who own small businesses because they're being attacked, and that we have, our words are important now, because when we're silent, it only emboldens evil. So one thing I try to get people to do is we've got to push back and talk out and refute those bad ideologies. And so here's what I've learned in Sacramento. I did that. It does work. I mean, I'm always polite in my speech, right? I try to keep my voice calm, and I try not to make the argument personal against them, but against their policy. And I had a lot of good fortune in there. But the problem is, we Republicans have to get better at presenting our arguments, right? We have to learn from Ronald Reagan or Winston Churchill or even Abraham Lincoln, because they could clearly communicate things they believed, and they turned the world upside down, right? And so we have to get better at what we say and what we communicate. And again, we have to refute those bad ideologies, and we have to know how to be able to talk without sounding crazy and without trigger words. You know, you always want to be polite. Like Reagan, he always, when he spoke, he was polite, did it in a calm voice, and always a wink and a smile. But he was able to thread that needle and eliminate his competition because of his speaking eloquence. And so I think we have to do the same thing, but we can push back and we can win.
Yeah, I find that as a candidate and as a council member here locally, there's a lot of I guess people skills, even relating to the other side, because we've got to present what is right and what is true in a way that will be listened to. And then the other side of that is we need to listen and relate to people on a personal level, because I think our within the last 4 years at least, we can't even have conversations with people because of those trigger words.
Yeah, and by the way, part of that's our fault, but I am convinced that other part, you know, in modern education today, much of education today, I have the belief that it's laced with Marxist rhetoric that's designed to separate the student from the parent and make the student a ward of the state. So a lot of the things, look at the riots on campuses. When I was in college, you couldn't get away with those things that they did then. And people were able to talk. You know what I mean? There was a few yelling, but not like it is today where it's gone off the rails. And so we have to get back to that. And I think the thing is again, making the argument and knowing our case. We have to be vocal about these things and work really hard to learn how to debate in the public field. And I learned when I had a couple of hundred interns working for me when I was in the Senate over time, is some of these young people were not on the same belief system as I was, but sometimes we would stay 5-6 hours talking about these things. And, you know, they were willing to come to the table, ask very difficult questions, and reason it took so long, 5 or 6 hours, because they really worked me, you know. But the thing is, you have to be prepared. And, you know, that takes time. That takes study. You know, it's good to go back and look at some of those old documents that, you know, our country was founded on, because we can learn. I've gone back, by the way, and watched almost every Ronald Reagan speech that he gave, you know, because I just thought, man, if I could learn 1/10 of what he learned, that would be an asset and very valuable to help further the things that we believe to be good and true about America.
Yeah, I love going to the Reagan Library and actually sitting and watching those speeches in the old black and white film. And I push the button over and over just to absorb his spirit, because he was speaking genuinely and he was speaking truthfully and persuasively, and it really changed California. I think some of those speeches were before he was governor of California.
Yeah, his first one was 1964, a few years before governor. It was a time for choosing speech. It's an incredible
Yeah.
speech. He was speaking on behalf of Goldwater. And so the speech is 27 minutes. And by the way, political speeches should only be 20 minutes. Do you know why?
Why?
Because Ronald Reagan said so.
Uh-huh.
So his was 27, but I timed almost the rest of them. Well, you can look on Facebook. They're between 17 and 20 minutes. But that speech, it was kind of interesting because Barry Goldwater was upset with him because he talked about communism, and you could tell he was preparing himself to run for office. And out of the 27 minutes, Reagan talked about what he wanted to do with communism and sort of his plans for 21 minutes. He only spoke about 6 minutes about Barry Goldwater, but they were so impactful. Barry Goldwater called him at midnight, I read, and Barry Goldwater says, "We've raised more money tonight than I have in the last 3 or 4 months." And so just when you have media, earned media, as we're doing here today, 6 minutes can be powerful if we say the right things. And that was Barry Goldwater thanking Ronald Reagan for that. But at first, Reagan took 21 minutes of his own speech and dedicated 6 minutes. But they were a powerful 6 minutes about Barry Goldwater. And that's then the next thing you know, that propelled Ronald Reagan into being a governor and then eventually president. So again, they call him the great communicator. We have to learn to speak well. To win.
I'm thinking of my son Ben. I knew that my son Ben would be able to do some capacity in government, and I was praying for him 5 years ago. He's now at Patrick Henry College in Virginia, and but 5 years ago I was praying for him because I was praying for open doors for him, and that was when the Lord spoke to my heart to run for office. And I was thinking, I guess this came to remembrance because I always took Ben to Ronald Reagan Library, and because I knew I wanted Ben to have a lot of good role models for his future. But I didn't think I would be running at that time. And so I feel like I've had a lot of catch up to do in a way, but whereas Ben's learning from being so young. But I would love for this generation to get the training that they need to be really competent and expert in all of their speaking, public speaking, their thinking, their debate abilities. And I'm here at this time, I'm saying this is our time because we don't have time to wait. Charlie Kirk wrote a book last summer called How We Win, and you had said something like, "This is how we win," so I thought of that book. It was like at the last page of that book, he says, we're not in a pendulum. It's not a pendulum that's going to swing back. It's not a circle where things are going to circle back to good times if we don't do something. And so, like you said, we have to speak up, we have to present, and then it's more of a trajectory. The left is on a trajectory, and they have a velocity that they're just going faster and faster on this trajectory. So it's not swinging back, it's not circling around. And so my conclusion was what we have to do is just keep pushing them off that trajectory. And it may take a while to bring things back to better times. And I don't even want to say the good old days, because I think the future can be even better than the past. And with the next generation, if we start now, this is our time to start pushing that trajectory in California off the current course, then the next generation can really build on that, even better times than we've seen.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And so the thing is we have to encourage others to do that too, you know, in the party. And I even had, like I say, I developed a training manual, a syllabus, to work with these young people. And they do like that Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Remember, they're in a world of moral relativism, that there is no truth. And they wanted to know, is there really truth in this world? And that phrase, sometimes you could spend a couple of hours on. and you walk them through the first paragraph, the laws of nature, and nature's God. God places truth in the human nature as well as history for all to see, right? And it was kind of interesting because we had some liberal kids there, conservative, all shapes and sizes, and man, they would just drill us with questions, but I loved it. And at the end of the day,
so awesome.
it was a lot of fun. So I think that generation is a generation that's looking for hope and answers. Everybody's looking for hope, but they're looking for answers.
Right.
We just have to be better at doing that. And again, getting back to Ronald Reagan, by the way, he won 49 out of 50 states just because of his communication skills, right? And he knew how to run a business too. So when he got into office, he served well. And we need another Ronald Reagan to come along, I think,
Yes.
So hopefully Trump, I don't think he's he's not a Ronald Reagan, but he's, I think, good at running a business. And so let's hope that he can get back. The country's in a lot worse shape now under Biden.
Yeah.
So he's got his work cut out for him. We have our work cut out for us,
My favorite Reagan quote is, "It can be done."
It can be done.
Yeah, I got a baseball hat with that. It can be done.
I like it.
Yes. One thing you were mentioning about California, maybe going back to what the California legislature is responsible to take care of, and is water. I don't remember exactly what the comment was about it, but water and the farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had just been driving up and down to San Francisco area a few weeks ago, and it's so sad on the 5 freeway to see all of these trees. I think they were almond trees, just knocked over on the ground, dead, dried out. And I don't have a lot of conversations with the farmers at this point, but it looks obvious that they couldn't keep those trees watered and fruitful.
Yeah, and again, we've had more rainfall the last 2 seasons, and so the drought by California is officially over. But the thing is they're worried about these fish, and so they are only being able to get 40% of the water they need to farm. And remember, this is going to cost us in groceries. They're already talking about how this is impacting farmers, almond growers going broke. It's so wrong. And another thing, too, that I learned when I was in the Senate, this is so evil. We've had the Seitz Dam, I think it was, up in Northern California, has been on the books. The Seitz family dedicated that. It was either 30 or 40 years ago, and we've been trying to get that dam built for that long. But because of the environmental codes and all this and that, they're trying to stop that from being done. So the year.
And you think if we had that storage done 30 years ago, we would have had water for the drought of the last 10 years.
Absolutely. And so not this year, but the year before last, I read that we had such an amazing, plenty of water, that the dams, some were overflowing.
Yeah.
And so they had the water departments, various water departments around the state, had to release water.
Right.
And up here in Northern California, they released it into the San Francisco Bay and the salt water, which does us no good. And I read that they released enough water to be able to provide for 17 million homes for 1 year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, our water is going to, and because California, it's always about global warming, but the thing is when you look back at history, we usually will go through about a 5 to an 8 year season of drought. And then we have the rains, and then it replenishes itself. And so this is business as usual.
Yeah.
Too bad our friends across the aisle are playing that game to protect, the mineral or something like that. And they can still live, in my opinion. But the thing is, farmers need to be able to grow food. We need to be able to buy food at a reasonable price. So it just seems like a evil, wicked thing that they're doing here in California. And that's why, you being elected, we need good people. We need people who are in it. The thing that I appreciate about you is you're going to be a public servant, not a master. Knowing you're a hard worker, you're honest, ethical, moral. You've lived a good life. Your family is in order. Your kids are in order. You got a great marriage. And again, and you have a lot of humility, and you're going to serve the people, and you're going to do what's right for the people. And so that's what we need to get elected here in California. Is we need more people with virtue who are willing to be public servants and do really what's best, because Sacramento can be a game. You got the lobbyists across the street, right? And they want their way, and so they're going to twist arms, and they're going to take you to lunch, and they're going to do everything they can to have you vote this way. And some of those votes, I went along with, but some of them are not always good for the state as a whole, but my friends across the aisle, the Dems, for whatever reason, they are caught up in sex, drugs, and eliminating the men and women in blue. I don't know what it is. Is it a self-destructive course? Well, it is lawlessness, which typically stands for immorality, right? Stems from immorality.
Personal lawlessness.
Yeah.
And,
but that's the thing. Look at
lawlessness.
Crime is at an all-time high in California. It's absolutely ridiculous. People fear. They're breaking into stores. Those young people should be arrested. And I think the majority of citizens want that. But my Democrat friends across the aisle, they don't want that. And then you go this education. I'm not a prude, but I don't approve of drag queen hours when you have an adult man who wants to call up an elementary school and say, can I come and dance provocatively to your first graders, right?
No.
But worse than that, you have some schools saying yes to this. And so whatever happened to education, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right?
The basic duties of government is to punish the evildoers and then protect the truly peaceful citizens. That's what we pay our taxes for, these basic community services that need to protect the whole of society, so we don't all have to be individual, protecting ourselves. And it's coming to that. And then for our schools, we do pay taxes for education, so that because at different times in history, it has been only people that can pay for private education where their children get educated. And so public schools are a really great benefit, but if we, the taxpayers, are the parents, we are the families, it's a service to the families, and it's upside down. Instead of serving the people, it's becoming a top-heavy, mandating, taking away the authority of the locally elected school boards to decide on these curriculums, and going away. And parents basically want, like you said, reading, writing, arithmetic, history, science, but when it comes to making our children confused on gender where they otherwise wouldn't be confused, and it's coming from schools, that's not what we're paying for.
Well, here's the thing. Look, at education in the classical sense used to be integrating the intellect with the soul, because we have a soul, right? And and that goes beyond just an accumulation of facts. But they're not even doing accumulation of facts anymore. And so it seems to be more social indoctrination. It's the weirdest thing that these colleges or in high schools and whatever are teaching these students some of the things they're teaching them. But so I'm all for, in Arizona they have where the money follows the student. And so you get a voucher and you can spend so much, and there's a list where you can spend. But here's the thing why that's so good is I'm not, how would I say, I'm school for parental choice for schools. But the reason why is we got to help the public schools. Competition's good. They don't want competition. Competition raises all bars. A professional basketball coach has to get so many checks in the win column. A CEO on a publicly traded company needs to get the stock price up, or you lose your job. It's competition, but it makes everybody better. You run faster, jump higher, and pray harder, right, that you're going to do these things. And so I think the thing is, our public school kids, we want to help them just as much as we do the private and the Christian schools. We want to uplift everything, all boats. We want them to rise. And a little bit of competition is not a bad thing. And here's another thing, too. What's killing our schools and the cost for schools, the money's not getting into the classroom, very much of it. You have, from my understanding, it's either, I think it's the last 5 years. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty close, 5 to 7 years, that student population has increased about 7.5% in America. 7.5% has increased. Hiring the teachers is around 8%. But the bureaucratic state is over 70%. So you've got money flowing into Washington, D.C., and then you've got those high-paid bureaucrats, right? And then
So
once
you're saying 70% increase
in the
bureaucracy
of education, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then that money filters through D.C. and then it comes to California. And if I remember accurately, I think the Department of Education's like a 10 or an 11-story building. So you've got all those bureaucrats in there. Once that money funnels down, it comes out to my city, which is in Rancho Cucamonga. And there's not one, there's not two, there's not three, but there's 5 school boards. So you got 5 superintendents, 5 buildings you're paying lease on. You've got secretaries, custodians. And so what happens, then that money filters through the 5 school districts, and then it gets into the classroom. And so the thing is, look, we could eliminate a lot of that bureaucracy and let that money get into the hands of the classroom. Because I do think most of our teachers are pretty good. The parents are great. It's the bureaucratic state, which we were worried about. You know, big government's going to take and steal and rob, and that's what I think is sort of happening. Why education we moved it away from the people in the Washington, D.C., one size fits all for the same kids, the curriculum. We should let the parents in that district, the school board, and the teachers and the principal work with the parents and the students decide the curriculum. Because it's going to be here, local control. And when we had that, Beth, we were #1 in America.
Yes.
And so today, unfortunately, it's not that way.
Right. So a word that comes to me is it came from the discussion I was having with some of our water board experts. They were saying we need to change our mindset in California from a mindset of scarcity, because as it applies to water, we've been so afraid of scarcity. But also in education, it's not a matter that there's not enough money. Just like it's not a matter of that there's not enough water, but it's a matter of how it's managed and where it's managed and where the control is. So, so these water guys who are so smart, when I was asking them, you know, why can't we give water both to the farmers and to water our front lawn in the city? And they were saying we need to change our mindset from a mindset of scarcity to how do we manage the abundance that we have, and look at a long-term usage that's going to be servicing the next generation well. So both in things like water and in education, there needs to be so much reform in the management, bringing things back for schools, particularly local, where the parents can come into the school board, get elected on school board, decide on curriculum, and it doesn't have to be the same curriculum for every school district. The recent legislation going through the state regarding school curriculum wants the state level to decide curriculum for every area, and that's just going to be a problem for families and for parents who want to have their voice heard. It's harder to go to Sacramento and argue with the board up there than go to their local board.
Well, here's the thing.
Elected.
Yeah, here's the thing. As government gets more power, they believe they have all the answers. And you see this on the news. You see school boards talking, bad about parents. Like, there was one governor who lost the last race in Virginia. I think it was Terry McGuffley, something. I don't recall his name.
I remember.
But he made the error of saying parents, like
yeah.
And so anyway, here's the point. I like when parents are involved. Usually, history in America, usually we the people get it right before the politicians do. And so I think our voice should be heard.
So here's another mindset that needs to change from recent trends. One is change the mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance, and how do we manage that? And another mindset is relating to, what were you just saying? Instead of what can the government do for me and I don't have to be involved, to how can I be involved and the government needs to do less. So I'm kind of thinking of immigrant families, that when families come to the United States, the ones that really succeed for generations, they come in with a mindset of, I want to understand what's going on in American schools, and I want to participate, and I want to make sure that it agrees with our family values, and that participation and that involvement and understanding makes everything better in America. But when immigrants come in and they're just coming in with, what can I get for free here in the United States? How can I use the system? And it even goes into education. Can I just give my kids to the system? And it's understandable if the parents are working so hard and they have a language barrier there, but it's a dangerous thing when they just give their children to a system that is taking the brains of their young ones, and the parents they feel like they don't have to be involved. They just want to take advantage of what's available.
That's called bad parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Look at, they shouldn't come here illegal because it's illegal. So you're not going to get the best people coming in if they come here illegal, because I would not immigrate to a country and do it illegally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have morals, right? Sometimes not always good morals, but nevertheless, there's a way of doing things, and I don't want to enter a country if they don't want me. So I would, go through a process if I wanted to move to another country to make sure I was legal, ethical, moral, and I did the proper things, understand. And then, I think you're welcome into a society like that, especially America, where people want to come here, give us you're tired, you're hungry, but also those yearning to be free. We don't want to forget that. So we don't want lawbreakers coming in. We're seeing the result of that right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so that goes into another mentality of how can I beat the system? How can I go around the law for myself? And that's destructive to the whole society. So there's a lot of mindsets that I want to promote a change in these mindsets. So
remind me what cities you're running in.
Mm-hmm. Starts with La Crescenta in the west, where I'm on council, goes across the foothills and the 210 freeway to where you live, Rancho Cucamonga, and then most of San Gabriel Valley, going north and south from the top of the mountains, Altadena, even up to Mount Baldy, down to Monterey Park and the 60 freeway. So
well, I sure love to have you
Pasadena,
be
South
representing
Pasadena.
that area again. That would be awesome, So
yeah, thank
maybe
you,
some of
Mike.
your viewers here would decide to help you. That would be nice.
Yeah.
So
yes, I hope so. Yep.
Yeah.
And Mike, I appreciate your support, and Mike's really been my mentor the past several years, and he's a great example of an ethical legislator that has he's not only has a resume of impressive accomplishments, but a character that is a role model for many. And Mike's written a book. Yeah, tell us about your book.
Oh, yeah. So when I got it, thank you. I didn't come here to promote my book, but thank you. When I got out of the Senate, I was a little lost. What do I do next, And so I thought, I'm going to write letters to my grandkids and my kids to remind them what family should be like. In other words, not how to raise a family in a sense of feed them 3 times a day, but more virtues, like today. So one of the things I looked at in our society today, a lot of people lack gratitude. And if you remember the children of Israel, they wandered for 40 years because they lacked gratitude towards God, So I don't want my kids or grandkids to wander around in life for 40 years. So I wrote a chapter on what gratitude is, right? And so that's what I did is I looked at the different virtues. What are the virtues we want to
That's another mindset we need to reinstate, right? Gratitude.
We want to get as many virtues into our lives, meaning my life, my kids' lives who are growing, and then eventually our grandkids. That way, when you're virtuous and you understand the purpose of education is more than accumulating facts, but it's also enhancing the soul and the intellect. We want to talk about gratitude. I talk about marriage, as I mentioned, education again. Also defending freedom. What does it mean, limited constitutional government? What do the laws of nature mean? Self-evident truth. So I talk about these things, talk about courage, talk about leadership. That I love that one because I came out through business, and all the books are everybody can be a leader, whatever. And I pointed out you may not want to be a leader because it is not easy. You get beat up. Somebody's always barking from you behind. When I ran for the Senate, people are really beating up, sending hundreds of thousands of mailers out. What a wicked person you are. So I want my kids to prepare for leadership. But if God places them in that, then fine. But if not, you want to go. The purpose in life is one of the 7 deadly sins is slothfulness. That's when you're spiritually lazy and you don't ask the most important questions in life. How did I get here and for what purpose? So we want to live out our purpose. So that title is Leadership, Destiny, and Purpose, because your destiny is more important than leadership. If those doors open for that, fine. I want to prepare our kids for that, fine. But you can be happy just being a person who has an ordinary job, and you don't have to handle all these things as long as you're doing things that give you purpose in life and your family is in order. So anyway, I was going to write these chapters for my grandkids and our kids to remind them how to raise their kids. And so Joni, my wife, we were looking at those things, and she said, our kids and grandkids are being raised with their kids. You should turn this into a book. So we turned it into the book, The Road to Restoring the Family, available on Amazon, and it's gaining some traction and some momentum. Unfortunately, Instagram and Facebook will not let me advertise on there. And Instagram was accused in the Wall Street Journal of something that happened to do with pedophiles, right? And yet they won't take my book, which I thought was kind of interesting. And that was in the Wall Street Journal a few months ago, so I'm not gossiping about them. I'm just saying what the facts are. So it's kind of weird that they turned my book down. So I've had to do it the hard way selling, but I'm just starting to gain a lot of momentum, And I think it's selling well. When I go to groups and speak, I usually sell a pretty good percentage of the crowd.
It's restoration of
I should have mentioned the title. Sorry. I'm not doing a very good job on my sales ability today. The Road to Restoring the Family.
The Road to Restoring the Family.
Yes.
And you and I have a mutual friend who loves your book, and he has a son. So the father is first generation American, and he has a son, and he read the book, he loved it. He talked to his son about the topics in the book, and then he wanted his son to read it for himself, and he said, "Son, Mike Morrell, the author, is your godfather, because he's teaching me and he's teaching you."
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
That's kind.
Yeah, so you are being a spiritual father to many.
Well, those are kind words. I'm not sure if they're worthy, but I like the words. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's an encouragement.
Thank you for writing that book. Say the title again.
The Road to Restoring the Family, available on Amazon.
The Road to Restoring the Family.
Yes.
Yeah. Go get it on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Beth.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for talking with us today, and we'll do it again because there's so much.
I'll be grateful and happy to take you up on that.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So remember our slogan here: Love, Lives, Liberty, Law. It starts with love. We love each other. We love our neighbor. We love our country. Your lives matter. And liberty operates when good laws produce peace and prosperity. So see you next time. Elizabeth Wong Ahlers, this is our time. Bye-bye.
Very good.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Mike. I don't know. You guys didn't put